Good evening. We're picking up roughly where we left off last week, with one important note. Off camera, I did a very realistic and incredibly believable amount of... I did an incredibly realistic amount of grinding and got a very believable number of extra Pikmin. Because I figure that grinding is probably not the most fun thing to watch. Also, Jigstraw, enjoy lurking. Yeah, just a few extra Pikmin, just, you know, a believable amount. Exactly, I did a little bit of mining off stream. You'll hardly even notice. We did find that onion replica last week. Just a few extra Pikmin. At my age, reminiscing is wonderful. Louis, do you remember the hill behind our house? You hated to play outside, so I made you eat bugs and plants. Ah, memories. This woman is vile. I don't like her. Yeah, it looks like there's 2 more caves and 5 more surface treasures to find. So fingers crossed that we can find those. I once again must remember how to play this game, actually. Okay, so the submerged castle's over there, and that's the thing with the flubber on rolling pins. And there should be one more cave somewhere, I just have to find it. Yeah, I farmed a reasonable number of every Pikmin. Reasonable and above all else, believable. Okay, right, looks like I need yellows for this. A mix of yellows and blues, rather. Wizardry? Whatever do you mean? It's good old effort. Hard work. Elbow grease. And a bubble. Oh, RIP those ones. It's fine, we got extras. That's a strat you've never seen before. What's the right way to do this? Just pick them up one by one and toss them over? Yeah, some of them may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Build the bridge. Wait, there's a bridge to build? Huh. Today I learned. SPU, start working on this. I'm just doing an idle game on the side while waiting for them to finish what they're doing. If you hear me clicking, it's because I'm making number go up. Anyway. You threw them over the water onto the gate from the front? Oh, just like this? Do they die? Or can they just barely hang out in front? Truly, we have reserves. I feel a little bit sociopathic. Like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Don't worry, little ones. I may have gotten, like, a lot of your friends and family killed, but, like, surely you'll do better. You'll try harder, right? You won't disappoint me like the others, right? You know what the consequences for failure are, right? They wanted to help. I wasn't gonna say no. Now, as for you... take this thing back home, please. Oh no, evidence of my crimes have been archived. This is fine, actually. That's the Pikmin did a thing jingle, I believe. which means that this thing is probably open. How do I have 250,000 Pikmin? Lots of diligent effort and mining. Interesting, my odor detectors are reacting. A strong scent wafts from that hole. We might have found living. I am a machine, so rating scents is beyond me, but your faces tell me all I need to know. Joke's on you, we're in atmospheric suits. You are both drooling. I wish just once I could feel what it's like to drool. I mean, nobody can really stop you from drooling, I feel like. Ooh, pasta sauce. Rejected button is up. Best if used by date on cap, March 2005. It's only 20 years out of date. What could possibly go wrong if we eat it? Also, not gonna lie, surprised that the Pikmin actually handled that thing entirely on their own. Now, what distribution will we bring in here? The Glutton's Kitchen. And the only hazard is electrical. Alright. You found a can of mackerel in your grandmother's pantry that expired in 1975. Actually, how expired that is contingent on when you found it. Like, conceivably you found it in 1976, you know? Sometime after 2010. Yeah, that probably beats the salsa. Also, ooh, treasure. Ooh, treasure. That's a bottle opener, I believe. If memory serves, the last time I had to open a bottle with like a proper cap on it, if memory serves, I just like pressed it against the corner of a desk. I think that's what I did. Like, I didn't actually have a bottle opener, so I made do. The Impediment Scourge. I like that. Alright, I think what I'll do is I'll restart the day. And then I'll take 100 yellow Pikmin and go into that thing that only needs yellow Pikmin. Actually, maybe I'll bring some white Pikmin in case I need visibility. Oh, I few of those ones. Do you love bargains? Do you like designer items at cut-rate prices? Then come save tons of Pokos at Pikmin.com. I like how they are like, oh yes, our actual IRL advertisement is spam. I've evolved from local business owner to mega corporation CEO. Look, I got like 100 people killed so I could make 40 bucks. I'm nowhere near mega corporation level. I've got a long way to go before I'm quite that vile. Alright, Glutton's Kitchen. No, you don't. Speaking of gluttons, I never said that you could eat. Come back here. I like how it gets beaten most of the way to death, and then it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna pick another fight. Like, that first 99% of my health con, that was just a fluke. That didn't count. I forgot to bring white Pikmin. Whoops. What could go wrong? I'm probably gonna regret that. Glutton's Kitchen. Oh, this place is an interesting aesthetic. Like how if I wanted to, I could just leave. Alright, we lost a few, but they also lost a few, so it's fair. Wait. Is that some kind of Mario chalk? Mario paint? Huh, so it is. Each pink. Oh, that's delightful. I've never actually played Mario Paint. I mostly see, the Master's Instrument. Most of the time when I saw, like, Mario Paint stuff, it was people using it to make music. But then that kinda got usurped by a $30 haircut. Wasn't the blue paint or the blue onion also from Mario Paint? Maybe? That does ring a bell. Another really fun thing that I've seen concerning Mario Paint, like the actual painting part, I want to say it was Vine Sauce thought that like they'd do a funny by following along to a Bob Ross tutorial, but in Mario Paint. And like the plan was to kind of like poke fun at like how crap it was gonna come out. But then it actually came out looking genuinely gorgeous. And he was like, what the heck? Bob Ross, you mad that you've done it again? It's actually such a delightful video. Then he kind of like ruined the moment by like deliberately like drawing a bunch of like nasty stuff over it, but at least at first it was really pretty. Give. This creature is defying me. Oh, there's another one. It's the most popular enemy in the whole fandom. Yeah, aren't they called bread bugs? I know that people love bread bugs, I'm not entirely sure why though. It is kinda cute though. The massive lid. And it's dead. Consume the bread, my children. Your life was worth $3. Rejoice, it's more than most get. I like how they're just kind of like waddling around, minding their own business. They can live. I'll allow it. Also, I guess it kind of isn't that big of a deal that I did so much mining off camera. It's like, I can still only bring 100 at a time into a cave, so... Also, yeah, I definitely should have brought some white Pikmin. You don't need whites for this? Oh, gotcha. I shall simply have to try harder next time to figure out what it is. Oh, I can't take the tambourine with me? That makes me sad. Wait, what if it is this thing? Harmonic synthesizer? Is it like a clacker? Also, I know for a fact that it isn't, but like... clacker kinda sounds like a slur. Oh wow, Redbug doesn't care about electricity. Redbug very powerful. A broken compass is right twice a day. The Director of Destiny. Suddenly Pirates of the Caribbean. Poor Redbug. Well, look at it this way. This way you can go and be with the thing you want. Hold up. Infinite Redbug loop. Now you can go be with the thing you wanted to be with. And then as each one comes and tries to save the last one, I kill them too. Alright, there's the way forward. The Glutton's Kitchen. I wonder if the glutton in question is a giant bread bug. That would be kind of delightful, actually. It's too agile for me to defeat. Yes, bread bugs. But not a bread mug. This is an invigorator. Also, did you see that? It like spawned in the background? For like one frame as I clicked off. Lips on this thing concern me. It definitely needs some chapstick. No, those aren't chapstick, those are Pikmin. I would say that it's an easy mistake to make, but I kind of feel like it isn't. Medio Pikmin are waxy, they're definitely non-conductive. The happiness emblem. I like how the ingredients list was just water and then sugar 6 times. Oh, the red bugs want to hang out. Good for them. So what are these things? Presumably, I will find out later. Every time I find another, like, candy in this game, it makes me want to eat it. I am so imaginative with the things that I say. No, wrong way. Keep going forward. There you go. The white goodness. Yeah, that one also spawned in the background. Yeah, I know that I missed at least one thing. And I know that you said that it wasn't a white Pikmin thing, but I think I'll come back with like 10 purples and 10 whites. Just to be on the safe side. Yeah, I'd hardly call it an issue, more a curiosity. Oh, RIP a bunch of Pikmin. Oh, I thought that was gonna be a boss fight. Oh, purple flower. Look at a few more purples. Like, I've already got a reasonable number of purples, but I could always use more. A very reasonable and believable number of purples. Reasonable? Yeah, reasonable. Like all multinational corporation owners. I acquired all of my assets legitimately through my own hard work. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm actually gonna avoid that, because the radar doesn't actually indicate that it's a threat, or rather that it's got anything in it. This is presumably some kind of radio. SMH Zoomers, just because I'm a fox and I get zoomies doesn't mean that I'm a zoomer. It also kind of looks like a crown. The sulking antenna. It could still be a crown. If you were sad enough. Anyway, speaking of being sad, looks like a party popper. Anyway, I should be more careful not to lose all of my Pikmin. I don't want them to go extinct. Again. If need be, I can always, like, speedrun some remaining stages and then come back with another refreshed army. The boom cone. I think I should try to be a little bit more careful moving forward. Final floor? Never mind, let's go all out. Ooh, giant bread bug. That thing is actually just a giant loaf. Well, alright then. I may or may not need multiple purples to help fight against it. The meat of champions. It looks kind of like bologna. Yes, yeah, it seems like the way to kill a bread bug is to let it try to take something and then take the thing that it's trying to take away from it. Which is kind of fun. I like that. It's unique. You there, try to consume your child. Or disregard it, works for me. Ah, you fool, it was a ruse. Luckily, there are plenty of, I was gonna say there are plenty of corpses around, but they're not corpses yet. It's a work in progress. What are you interested in? I know that it had like a donut earlier. Or maybe I had to like grab the donut before it like took it somewhere. Or... oh, hold up, hold up. Oh, excellent. The hideous victual. An eraser? Processing? How bizarre. An item appears to have fallen out of that freakish creature. It must have been a greedy beast to swallow something like this. Dream material. Fun fact, last night I dreamt that I found, like in a bag that I'd forgotten about, some instant ramen and a chocolate bar. So technically speaking, I could go on a mundane shopping trip and make my dream come true. Now does this thing say IO or OI? This intriguing material does not conduct electricity. It is far more advanced than the material I was researching. How frustrating. A spacesuit made from this wonder alloy would insulate the wearer from electric shocks. Excellent. This new material has allowed me to complete my anti-electrifier. It is my own invention with only the smallest iota of outside inspiration. I have reconfigured your suits with this new material. They will now protect you from electricity. That would have been useful a long while ago. Oh well, what can you do? Oh, so if you kill the bread bug, whatever thing it, like, stored away gets disgorged. Alright, that's cool. That also probably explains where the thing that I couldn't find last time around was. Or rather, on my first pass through here. The Sweet Dreamer. And yeah, we can, without too much difficulty, I think, come back and get the last thing that I missed. Some of them may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make. Put these purples away. I'm putting them away in the hope that the ones that don't have flowers will go to the back of the line. Cheats? What cheats? I just did a little bit of mining off camera, that's all. Day 30? Yeah, I just worked really efficiently. Like, we've established that I'm a business owner of some description, and as you know, business owners are all the hardest workers you know. Also, yes, I can fight the secret enemy on the 31st day. What that will actually entail, I'm not certain. Okay, presumably oh, hi. I was gonna say, presumably I have to kill every bread bug, but, looks like the thing was just there. There is, in fact, no need for violence. Enemy spawn rates increase after day 31. Oh no, what if my Pikmin die? The imperative cookie. Spare the bread? It all depends on whether or not they get in the way of my profits. Ooh, xylophone. Fun fact, the main boss team of Shin Megami Tensei 4 has an instrument that isn't but strongly sounds like a xylophone. And it's actually, like, genuinely intimidating. And, like, I would not think of that category of instruments as a category that could be intimidating. But they pulled it off, somehow. I believe it's actually tubular bells. Is mayonnaise intimidating? Kind of, it's quite spicy. And then we left. And then we left again. Right, and then I just have to get 100 blues and bring them into the sunken castle. Alternately, I could go looking for the other overworld treasures that are in this area. Imagine how intimidating it would be if you could have more than 100 Pikmin out at a time. Just an army, 250,000 strong behind me. It's like bear witness to my power. Honestly, it's kind of impressive that they managed to get like 100 NPCs kind of like operating concurrently. Like, there are modern games and modern systems that struggle to do similar. Like, granted, they aren't incredibly complicated, but like... Oh no. Well, he's dead. They still succeeded. Alright, to the submerged castle. Where the real threat isn't the water, it's the... water creature. Okay, right, I'm actually gonna have to lock in for this one. Let's take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I have to remember not to set my Pikmin on fire. Okay, that one they decided entirely on their own to do. That one wasn't me. Imagine if I couldn't extinguish them and just first thing I got a bunch of them set on fire. Oh, thank you for the rotation. Ow, my bones. But I lived, and I'm still rotating. What? I think something oh, hold on. It's the same camera issue as earlier. Hold on, I gotta fix this. There we go. That's better. In the mod you play, get Bulbman at the first sublevel because the fire doesn't stop. It actually sounds easier to deal with. Like less timing, more logistics. The pastry Leo. Also, Waffles, hi. Let's see, can I talk this nerd into the water? Where it's powerless. Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I wonder if maybe it might be smarter to actually just leave immediately. Because then I could get more blues and come back with like a full stack again. It's like I wouldn't have to kill that thing a second time, because I've already gotten the treasure out of it. Given how brutal this one gets later on, I might actually do that. Also, I just realized, it looks like if they get set on fire, their flower reverts. That's unfortunate. Ah, the Diet Doomer. Ain't that a fact? I think just out of respect for the fact that the last time I came here, it kind of kicked my butt. I'm gonna min-max it a little bit and come back with another stack of 100 Pikmin. Yeah, who knows? Maybe my tail will get kicked again. That's something that I'm willing to risk. We'll just put them all away so that the ones without flowers know that they aren't wanted. Right, come along. I appear to have gotten lost. Also, it amuses me that there's still technically a thing that I'm missing by the looks of it. Just going off of the appearance of, like, the wireframe, it looks like it's probably another thing to increase the range of the whistle. But I don't actually know. I wonder if one of those crawdad things is gonna have one of these on the way in again. It could happen. Alright, round 2. More Pikmin. That could be the subtitle of this game. Pikmin 2. More Pikmin. You think you know which treasure I'm missing? Would it be found in here? Because I feel like there aren't that many places left to check. One in the overworld? Ah, gotcha. I still actually have to hunt that one down. If I get my tail kicked in here, I think I'll go after the overworld treasure. I'm fairly resilient, but I'm not entirely immune to demoralization. If memory serves, this was the first level I encountered the Flubbergon rolling pins on. Also in hindsight, I totally should have just pressed forward, because Baldman would have been objectively better than Blue Pikmin. Oh well. Nobody's forced me to play this game 100%? Yeah, no, I know. I'm having fun with this game. If I wasn't having fun with this game, I wouldn't be playing it. I might stop at 99 just so that I never rescue Louie. But that's not a problem with Pikmin, that's a problem with Louie. I told them to leave. Choosing not to was on them. That should be a mod. Don't rescue Louie, get a good ending for it. Maybe like a new game bonus, where like, if on your memory card you got save data from Pikmin 2, where the game's been beaten but Louie's not been rescued, you start Pikmin 3 with like more resources. A convection hoop. And like a new hire that's like just objectively better across the board. In every stat. Though, given that email from his grandmother, it's not entirely his fault that he's like this. A car meter that only goes down when you save Louie. That's incredible. I love it. Yeah, if Louie was like, if Louie was abused with food as a child, it makes sense that he's like so gluttonous growing up. Or it makes sense that he's so gluttonous as a grown-up. Like, that's a thing that happens to kids if you don't let them eat enough, or if you force them to eat everything in front of them. It kind of creates a mentality in them where they feel compelled to eat absolutely everything that they possibly can. Honestly, you can have that one. The chocolate cushion. If memory serves, around this point in time on my last playthrough, the water monster thing had already killed like 75% of my Pikmin. So I'm already doing better. I actually wonder how deep the submerged castle goes. Like, for example, if I knew that it was, say, only 5 levels, I might be more cavalier than if it was, say, 12. So anyway, about losing a bunch of my Pikmin. I wonder if maybe I shouldn't try at all to disable these things, if I should just accept that, like, I'm gonna have to rush past them. These things continue to be a menace. If only I could kill this thing with lightning. Oh no. Actually, wait, I will have to disable the lightning thingies if I want to carry any treasure. Yeah, the timing's kind of tight, but it's very doable. You missed when electricity was scary? It still could be. There's nothing stopping you from sticking a fork in a power outlet. Live your dreams. Well, live isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. Oh wait, we're immune. Oh wait, I can just use Bobman to defuse electricity. Problem solved. If your own workers aren't competent enough, outsource. A compelling cookie. I wonder if it's because it's hypnotic if you spin it like this. Oh, you want to follow me on Twitch and subscribe to me on YouTube. Thank you for the head tats. I've actually had more than one person suggest to me in the past that, oh hey, perhaps I should like actually try doing like sort of like ASMR-y content. I'm not opposed, I just don't know what I would say. The activity arouser? You fools. That was entirely on them. That sounds like a thing I don't want to be on the same floor as. Oh no. Honestly, it killed way fewer than I thought it would. I put them in work mode? The frick is work mode? I told them to idle. Alright, I've got an idea. I'm literally just going to leave. All your Pikmin sprouts will be left behind. Did I not pull up all the whites? Oh goodness. This is fine. But yeah, I think my strat is I'll just push forward whenever that thing shows up. And then I'll go and get like different treasures on another pass. Because as far as I can tell, I can't fight it, so... Also, in hindsight, I didn't actually need to make white Pikmin, because I could just use... Oh, hey, speaking of Bulbmin, I was gonna say I could just use Bulbmin for it. Listen, when I said I didn't need white Pikmin, I didn't mean you should eat them all literally immediately. Whatever. Well, whatever. Technically, I did come out ahead. Although I don't know if, I don't know if bulb orbs can, I'm in danger. I'm in so much danger. I don't know if bulb orbs can dig things up like white Pikmin can. Or if they're merely just immune to poison. I feel like a spider carrying a bomb rock is like... very much a hater, and I can only kind of respect it, because, like, they're willing to kill themselves for the chance of mildly inconveniencing me. And, like, that's a level of pettiness that I can actually respect. All of you belong to me now. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Not you. Everybody that can go into water, go pick that thing up. Actually, wait, hold on. Wouldn't a battery submerge just discharge all of its energy? You know what, I feel like I shouldn't question that one. Good old double A. Proton double A. While I was at the store earlier today, I saw... oh no? I saw some rechargeable AA batteries, but I saw no charger. So it was like, how do I use you? Like, you'd figure that those would just come with a charger. Or at the very least be like on a shelf next to the charger for them. Because I am actually in the market for some rechargeable AA's. It would let me play a lot more Wii games with impunity. But yeah, no charger. The most last eternities anyway. My last one went for, I think, 3 sessions, and then I had to replace the batteries. Specifically 3 sessions. It lasted like 10 hours total, I think. The batteries died. Like, the Wiimote started just straight up shutting itself off, so I replaced the batteries. I should go. Sorry, white Pikmin, you're going to have to drown. It's... oh jeez. It's less loss of life. You know, for me, 10 hours is like... inadequate. I'd rather just have rechargeables. You want a battery that, like, lasts forever. The battery in the, Switch Pro controller, that thing actually lasts forever. Okay, this castle's only 5 floors, that's not too bad. Game Boy only took 2 batteries. Yeah, I can leave as I please, so that's nice. So, worst case scenario, as long as literally all of my Pikmin do not die, I can leave and lock in the progress that I made. Hello there. Ooh, egg. What if I need purples to fight this thing? Because I haven't had access to purples until right now. I've got exactly 10. It'd be really nice if I could, like, kill this thing here and then have it not show up on earlier floors. Okay, can this thing come through here? Yes, yes it can. Well, that was exciting. Oh, that's exactly what it is. I need purples. Okay, that wasn't so tough. A lot of running. Hey, all y'all, want in on this? Yeah, it's certainly shapely now that I get a look at it. I wish I threw a purple. There we go. Yeah, throwing every Pikmin but the purple one, that was entirely up to Olimar. I should just do this. There we go. You say you've never seen it escape, but I think it prefers this area more than the one it started in. And it's dead. Processing. How curious. The raid completely vanished, but what was it? Surface object scans indicate the presence of a bright red component. Looks like the last upgrade. Professional noisemaker. How insulting. This object's coloring is more eye-catching than my own hoe. You're literally golden. I shall connect it to the alarm clock our esteemed president was so fond of. Processing complete. I have refitted both objects into a pluckaphone. Now, simply blowing your whistle will inspire Pikmin sprouts to pop up out of the ground. Oh, that's nice. That's actually really nice. Would have been really, really useful before I farmed literally 250,000 of them, but, you know, we take what we can get. I can now see why it's your favorite. Ah, bye, Bulborbs. Okay, I'm missing 3. But I'm now more skilled. I have a kill under my belt. I no longer fear it. I have no need for fear. I'm very powerful. Now, is that thing going to stay dead on the earlier floors, or is it going to show up again? One way to find out. Oh, also, fun fact. A lot of people kind of underestimate how big a million is. Particularly because there are like so many contexts in modern society where like numbers higher than a million are kind of thrown around. But 1 million is such a big number that if your full-time job was just to count from 1 to 1 million out loud, and like you did 8 hours a day, 5 days a week of just counting, it would take you about 6 months to count from 1 to 1 million. On average. My nose might be bleeding, hold on. Okay, my nose is bleeding, but it's very spotty, so hopefully it'll stop. You can't really imagine 100 dots in your head, let alone 1,000, let alone 1,000 times that. I can't imagine any number of dots in my head. I'm always taken off guard by how deep Olimar's voice is. Like, I expect him to have like a really cute high voice, because he's tiny. And then he's just like, "Excuse me, I'm a fully grown man." It's like, "I'm sorry, sir." Okay, white Pikmin here. There's also a treasure here. Of the, I believe, 3 that are missing. I actually probably should have come down with fewer than 100, because then I could get the Bulbmin. Oh well, I'll do without. Every time I tell them to destroy something electrical, I'm just like, are they actually going to do it in time, or are they gonna faff around and get electrocuted to death? You see it going either way. Not even close. But where is the electrical thing? Is it buried here? I don't think so. Bunch of Pikmin volunteering to become bulbmen, logistically speaking. This is a nasty combination of bugs. Oh, get away from it. There's a treasure here. Oh, how is this fair? Well, this just isn't fair at all. Yeah, at least it decided to stop attacking. It's something. Oh no. And that's why I said oh no. This is just malevolent. Wait, get away, get away! How many Pikmin was that? Okay, looks like a lot of them are still alive over there. It's something. I was afraid I just lost them all. This, however, is fine. The succulent mattress. Presumably in case you ever get hungry while you're sleeping, you just start gnawing on your mattress. It's kind of like the old joke of somebody who dreams that they're in a marshmallow eating contest and then they wake up and their pillow's missing. Well, that answers the question of whether or not that thing remains a threat after killing it. There is treasure here as well. I need either Bulbmin or White Pikmin if I want to— oh hey, Bulbmin. Okay, there should be 2 treasures here on this floor. And if I can get them both, then I'm done here. Oh no. I didn't want to just run away because that might have led it back to, the remainder of my Pikmin. Wait, does this bug have the treasure? Huh, I thought that it could only have nectar. Well, alright then. Well, that works. This one looks like it's probably mint flavored. That or it's like a... maybe it's like a butterscotch? Pale Passion. Imagine that Belvoir being like, nieces, nephews, why are you doing this to me? Pardon me. I should go. Now, where might this final treasure be? I think what I'll do is I'll just leave these here, because babysitting them is kind of where most of my mental energy goes. And I'll just run around looking for a response on the tracker. That's neat, thank you. Oh. Yeah, I think I found it. Kill yourself. You can't prove that I didn't, try that spider to suicide. Oh no. Another one. Actually, on second thought, maybe don't go around telling people that I drove somebody to suicide. That's like a really, really bad look, actually. It's poetic. I say that and then like the curtain reveals a picture of literally the devil. Yeah, that sounds like I should go. Please go faster. Excellent. Drone supplies. This thing is literally camping the exit. It's actually just camping the exit. Go faster, go faster. There's another barrier in my way. Excellent. And then here I can just leave. Well, that was an adventure. Yeah, not gonna lie, I thought that that cave would end up being a lot nastier than it ended up being. Granted, I lost like 80 Pikmin, but I don't offer a severance package, so I don't care. Alright, we're gonna take another 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Now that should be the last cave here, so now I just gotta look for overworld treasures. So maybe I should just end this day, since next day I should be in the final zone looking for that secret enemy. I suppose I can still run around looking for it, though. That looks like a thing. I vaguely remember this. I'll need to do some shenanigans with, like, math. To get enough Pikmin up there to lift that thing. And then there's another thing up there. Which I suppose I'll want yellows for. Do I know how many I'm missing in this area? Without anybody, I mean. Because if it's 2, then that's them. Oh. It looks like there might be a thing buried here. So I suppose let's make getting that the last thing that I do here today. Just a little bit of off-screen grinding. I like that these things can keep up with me at full blast, though. Here we are. Oh, that's like a proper shell. Oh, they are going with it. The fortified delicacy. I expected it to be something like mobile home. The white Pikmin left behind may have been eaten, but at least everything that ate them is going to die as a result. I got a lot done today. I cleared 2 whole caves. Lately, I've been getting a ton of mail from a strange person selling designer items at cut-rate prices. It sounds like a deal. Should I send them your bonus check? If this game was made today, that child would be asking ChatGPT instead of his father. Giant breadbug, Pensaurus gigantus, breadbug family. This gargantuan species of the greater breadbug family has a torso so perfectly square that it almost seems like it was formed in a mold. For a brief period after birth, the giant breadbug competes for food with smaller breadbugs, but upon reaching maturity, it seeks out much larger prey. This is the primary reason that 2 species with similar feeding habits can coexist in the same habitat. Hordes of Pikmin appear to pose the only plausible threat to this massive creature's life. Water wave. Amphibios-sapiens, unknown family. All that is known about this creature stems from a few sightings deep underground. All reported sightings feature the same core set of details, a giant viscous form with a clear, hazy sheen, not unlike hard candy. One theory holds that it may be the ectoplasmic incarnation of a kind of psychic phenomenon, but as is usually the case with such theories, it is very difficult to prove. All witnesses report being suddenly overcome with fear upon sighting the creature, approaching a state of panic and near insanity. In fact, every report contains an inordinate amount of extremely vague details, which has led to suspicions that exhaustion and fear have caused some simple natural phenomena to be viewed as a living creature. Okay, I think that's enough of that. Alright, day 31. Let's see what can be found here. The Wistful Wild. Well, I know one thing that can be found here, and it's a very heavy thing that requires literally 100 purples to pick up. Even now it's taking them some time. I suppose while they're doing this, I can go look for the boss thing. Slap this thing into a state of silliness in the meantime. Oh, you stop breaking that. You know, it'd be really nice, actually, now that I think about it, to play this game with, like, 2 people in co-op. Oh, this looks kind of ominous. I'm legitimately not sure what I'm looking for. Like, this does look like it might be it, because I've just never seen anything like this before. Is that? Alright. Then I should try to get back there with as many hours in the day as possible. Keep going, you can do it! In hindsight, trying to do this on the day where, like, I might need to spend some time fighting. Perhaps wasn't wise. Worst case scenario, if I run out of time and I can't just reset this day, I can always, like, wait for day 60, clear out the area leading up to it, and then fight the thing on day 61. The Doomsday Apparatus. Right, that thing regenerates if you don't take it away. Well, we'll just have to let it do that, because I don't have time to be thorough. Blues, I brought you along so you could rebuild the bridge. Please do so. Oh, nice, so I could just toss the others over, right? Excellent. Then the thing that I was after, I think, was over here. Let's do our best to clear this area out. I'm not sure what's killing my Pikmin, but... seems like a lovely way to farm nectar. Yeah, I did spot some over here. I should stop being greedy while there's technically time limits. do I get up there now? Oh geez, I gotta go all the way around now. Or I could just do this. Oh, they are getting poisoned, huh? Right, hold on. This is fine, I will simply improvise. I will improvise. Presumably, white Pikmin can't be poisoned. What do you think you're doing? Nobody said you could eat. Was that all of them? Looks like it probably wasn't. I feel like either like one got away or there's like a third batch that I need to kill. Even if I don't end up fighting the enemy, which I do want to do, getting a ton of nectar for basically free is pretty nice. Yeah, surely I'm just missing something. This looks big and ominous. I must have just missed something. That or maybe the thing shows up if I take all the nectar. In regards to what? Making the enemy spawn. I thought it already? Oh, was the tiny little things not it? Oh, I was expecting some kind of like super boss. Well, alright then. I was like, yes, our battle will be legendary. Oh, it's over. Middle slimes, I guess. I was expecting like a super, super challenging boss fight. Oh well, this is fine. It's kind of hypnotic, watching them do their thing. Let's see, the other ones are mostly back home. Oh, that was technically a treasure. The Armored Nut. Will they succeed? Yes, they will. The Doomsday Apparatus. I also just realized that that puts, like, a very, like, objective, easy-to-measure cap on, like, the carrying capacity of a Pikmin. Louis, I sent you some of the preserved bug food from home. You should share some with your company president. As a kid, bugs loved you so much, always nibbling. Ah, he just like me for real. I don't like this comparison. There are, in fact, only 2 treasures remaining here. What was I saying? I forget. Whatever I was talking about before I ended that last day, I've legitimately forgotten the topic. I feel like there was more I wanted to say, but... anyway. Thoughts fall out of my head like a sieve sometimes. Oh, right, because that was like a 1 kilogram barbell, and it took exactly 1,000 units of lifting power to move. That means that 1 unit is just 1 gram. It's actually very, very simple. This also means that it's really easy to, like, measure other, like, types of lifting capacity using Pikmin as a unit. So... what's the best way to do this? Need 100,000 regular Pikmin and I'm gonna at your university to bring you there. I mean, I could lend you that many. I have that many to spare. Oh, I think I need the president for this. Actually, yeah, get that thing just out of the way, please. Thank you. You don't get to eat it. Okay, so... yeah, this doesn't seem too complicated, actually. Okay, yeah, that was a lot more intimidating in my head than it was in practice. Which is usually the case for such things. Speaking of intimidating... and then I think the other one was... over here. And I need to get yellows there. So I may as well take these ones back home, put them away, and pull out yellows. Oh, what did you get here? Hold on, I know how to solve this. Here, go ahead, eat up. Problem solved. that is actually so good. The massage girdle. I'm really curious how you would massage anything with that. Yeah, I wonder if I've got enough time to get the other treasure. I hopefully do. Yeah, I gotta get these up here, which... if I do it like this, doesn't seem too unreasonable of a prospect. Oh no, one of your kin has perished. Now see, what I've just done is a process called natural selection. This Pikmin is smarter than the other ones, and this is the one that gets to come home. Big taste, big crunch. The Gherkin Gate. I was gonna say, isn't this like a brand of pickles? Alright. Now the only thing left to do is to start reading the final zone. I think I'll go overworld first, then the caves. The quote-unquote only thing left, no spoilers. Unless it's like something that I'm likely to miss. That's weird. My count of yellows went down for some reason. Libby, you've sent absolutely no replies. I'm worried about you. I'd like to come see you, but I'm so old. All I can do is send you preserved bug food. Oh, you think it won't be so simple? That's fair. Alright, 3 treasures above ground, then 3 caves. And there's a bunch of Pikmin still on the ground. You advise skipping challenge mode because you don't think it's fun? Fair enough. Alright, I'm not sure what hazards I'll face, but I suspect that 90 purples and 10 whites can probably handle most of it. Oh, is challenge mode like the Dandori battles in Pikmin 4? Alright, 3 treasures. I'm still kind of hoping that we find out that there's like some sort of like ominous entity behind this mall. I should probably have done something similar as— oh hey. I was gonna say I probably should have done something similar as the last one, where like I identified where the treasures were and then went to go get them. Oh, there's one of them. Yeah, I'm kind of just making this up as I go along. Oh, this thing's complaining. That's kind of disgusting. Prepare to be consumed, thief. I like pine cones. The conifer spire. If memory serves, if you set fire to a pine cone, it actually, like, ignites very easily and is also very visually pleasing. Well, that was just rude. Yeah, if memory serves, I might be completely mistaken, but if memory serves, pine cones are like one of the best things to look for if you're looking to start a fire. Because sometimes wood doesn't catch fire as easily as you'd like it to. Yeah, if the wood is damp, you can still burn it. You just have to, like, have a starter fire that'll, like, dry it out. I've never really been much of an outdoor fox, but I picked up a few things. Okay, that's halfway through the day. Honestly, let's just restart the timer. No reason not to. I'm not speedrunning. Okay, same nail. I wonder if it's just gonna be the same nail over and over again now. Or if it's just RNG that I got the same one twice. You're RNG? Gotcha, Fox moment. Alright, time to find another treasure. purples seem kinda good. And by kind of good, I mean blatantly OP. Oh, wait, that was a treasure. We take those. I was just kind of killing everything in my path. I didn't even realize that was a treasure. Try it. You know you want to. I will say there is something very satisfying about, like, escorting a procession of Pikmin as they're carrying a lot of things. Like, yes, go forth, grow my wealth, expand my armies. Pardon me. This looks like a chestnut. The seed of greed. This is what I sprouted from. Centuries ago. Surprisingly, no Pikmin have died yet. All things considered, when you're not factoring in the caves, this isn't a very big map, so I shouldn't have too much difficulty finding the last treasure. Presumably. And if I can find that and bring it back to the ship, I feel like that'd be a really nice note to end the stream on. This is just nectar. That's the gate that I've destroyed. I like bamboo. Partially because I'm a total weeb, and partially just because I like plants that are resilient. Speaking of resilient plants, shout out to that time that I failed to successfully keep a cactus alive. Looks like... Oh, it might be this mushroom. Indeed it was this mushroom. There they are. I was like, where are the Pikmin that got left behind? Keep going, I believe in you. The final overworld treasure. And it's just a mushroom. The anti-hiccup fungus. How does that work, I wonder? Maybe it's like a really, like highly poisonous mushroom, so you just die instantly. And then because you're not breathing, you're not hiccuping. Anyway... a bit of a stretch. Louis, you sent absolutely no replies. I'm worried about you. I'd like to come see you, but I'm so old. All I can do is send you preserved bug boots. Are we sure that this... Are we sure that this is like a random pool and not just this one over and over again? Cause like... okay. Also, Charles, welcome. Anyway, with that, I think we're gonna call it for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is tomorrow. It's going to be Metroid Prime Hunters. It may or may not be the last stream, I'm not sure. The next time I'm playing this game in particular is going to be on Sunday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.